Welcome, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Let's begin. If you see these signs God is working in you, it doesn't always look like fire from heaven. It doesn't always feel like joy overflowing. Sometimes when God is working in you and I, it feels like everything's falling apart. But that's the first sign He's closer than ever. God doesn't begin His work by decorating your life. He begins by tearing down what was never meant to stand. If you feel stripped, emptied, uncomfortable, if your comfort zones are collapsing, that is not chaos. That is construction. God doesn't renovate the soul with ease. He rebuilds it with fire. So if you're seeing signs of disruption, if the things you once relied on are being removed, don't panic. Praise Him. He's not ignoring you. He's refining you. He's breaking the idols, silencing the noise, removing the false supports, because He wants to be your foundation. And here's the truth. When God is working in you, it rarely feels like a celebration. It often feels like a breaking. But don't confuse the pain of pruning with the pain of punishment. God only prunes what He intends to grow. When you cry at night and wonder, where is God in this? Understand, He's closer than your breath, but He's not there to comfort your old self. He's there to resurrect the new one. Sometimes the greatest evidence of His presence is not your life getting easier. It's your soul getting quieter, your distractions becoming distasteful, your excuses no longer satisfying, your sin no longer feeling safe. That discomfort, that tension inside your chest, that's not guilt. That's awakening. That's heaven knocking on the door of your heart saying, I'm not done with you yet. And you know God is working in you when you start to feel like you can't live in the in-between anymore. When compromise becomes unbearable. When silence feels like disobedience. When your heart starts breaking for what breaks His. That's not a random emotional shift. That's the Spirit of God reshaping your soul from the inside out. It's not weakness. It's warfare. Because before God moves through you, He must first break everything that's been blocking Him in you. That's why the pressure increases. That's why your appetite changes. That's why things that used to satisfy you now feel hollow. God is weaning you off the world. He's calling you deeper. He's asking for more of you because He's about to give more of Himself. And then there's the restlessness. Not the kind that comes from anxiety or fear, but the divine agitation that tells you you were made for more. That sense that no matter how much you accomplish, there's something still calling you higher. That tug in your soul that whispers in the silence, this is not all there is. That right there is the sound of God working in you, not letting you settle, not letting you sleep through your purpose, not letting you blend in with the world you were called to transform. It's a holy discomfort, a sacred stirring, and it won't leave you alone. That unease you feel when you try to compromise again. That tension when you attempt to return to what God already delivered you from. That's not confusion. That's conviction. It's proof that you can't go back. Because the hand of God has already marked you for something greater. You can't drink from the cup of the world and the cup of the kingdom. You can't keep your feet in Egypt and expect to walk into the promised land. The Spirit in you is too alive to let you pretend you're dead. So if you feel the weight of that inner war, don't run from it. Run to it. It means He's working. It means your conscience is awake. It means your soul is in process. And here's the truth most won't tell you. The people God uses most often feel the most unqualified while He's preparing them. Because He doesn't fill vessels that are already full. He empties them first. He takes you through seasons where you feel broken, unworthy, invisible. But that hidden place, that wilderness, it's not abandonment, it's alignment. It's where God reshapes your motives. It's where He purifies your intentions. It's where He teaches you to hear His voice above all others. And if you've noticed lately that you crave His presence more than applause, If you've been willing to let go of shallow conversations for deeper prayer, if your hunger for the Word has started to outweigh your hunger for worldly success, then rejoice. Not because of how far you've come, but because of how deep He's reaching. God doesn't stir up hunger in your soul just to leave you empty. If you're thirsting for Him, He's already near. If you're desiring righteousness, He's already planting it within you. If you're losing interest in things that used to pull you down, that's not you being boring. That's you being reborn. Because when the Spirit begins to take over, you don't just want to do better, you want to be transformed. You want your life to reflect heaven. You want your steps to carry eternal weight. You want your time, your talent, your influence to all point back to the one who gave them. And suddenly, mediocrity is no longer acceptable. Lukewarm is no longer tolerable. Comfort is no longer your God, because now you've seen too much, felt too much, tasted too much of His presence to go back. And this is where the deep work begins, because once God stirs your hunger, once He awakens your spirit, once He breaks the illusion of comfort, He begins the painful, beautiful process of reshaping your identity. He doesn't just want your hands, He wants your heart, He wants your thoughts, He wants your whole name written in Him, not in the world. See, the enemy wants you confused about who you are, wants you clinging to labels from your past, failures, addictions, rejections, regrets. He wants you thinking you're just a product of your pain. But God sees something entirely different. He sees who He designed before the world ever broke you. He sees the calling that was spoken over you before you were even born. So if you feel like your identity is being stripped, if you're walking through a season where you no longer recognize yourself, that is not a loss. That is a return to the version of you God always intended. Because when God starts to work in you, He doesn't polish the false self. He destroys it. He removes the masks. He exposes the lies. He silences the shame. And He begins to whisper over you, you are not your mistake. You are not your fear. You are not your past. You are mine. And when that voice becomes louder than your guilt, when that truth starts cutting through the lies you've believed for years, that's how you know God is not just fixing you, He's reclaiming you. Because identity is the battleground. If the enemy can keep you questioning who you are, he can keep you running from who God says you are. But when God restores your identity, He doesn't just hand you a new name. He shows you the vision tied to it. And maybe lately you've started to see glimpses, moments of clarity, flashes of purpose, ideas that don't come from your ego, but from eternity. Maybe you've felt a calling stirring in you, a burden that won't leave you alone, a dream that seems too big for your qualifications but too loud to ignore. That's not coincidence. That's God opening your spiritual eyes. When He starts to reveal purpose, it often comes in pieces, one divine burden at a time, one conversation that hits you deeper than it should, one idea that keeps waking you up at night. You'll notice that the things of this world start losing their shine, that chasing validation starts to feel empty, that surface-level goals no longer satisfy your soul. And then you start to ask dangerous questions. God, what was I really made for? What do you want from me? Where are you sending me? And in that moment, you've stepped into the sacred. Because when you stop asking, how can I get ahead? And you start asking, how can I be used? You are no longer just a believer. You are becoming a disciple. You're moving from convenience to calling, from selfish ambition to kingdom assignment, from wandering to walking in holy direction. And here's the truth. God will not show you the whole picture at once, because if He did, your fear would kill your faith. So instead, He gives you just enough vision to move, just enough direction to obey, just enough fire to burn the bridges to your old life. Because if you're still trying to live with one foot in His will and the other in your own plan, that vision will stay blurred. But if you dare to let go of control, if you let your identity rest in who He says you are, you'll start to see it unfold. Doors will close, not because He's rejecting you, but because He's redirecting you. People will walk away, not because you failed, but because they can't walk into the next level with you. The crowd shrinks before the calling expands. And that's how you know this is not ordinary change. This is not a phase or a motivational season. This is transformation. So if you feel like you're being separated, good. So was Moses. So was David. So was Jesus. Separation always comes before elevation. Isolation always comes before revelation. And when God starts revealing who you really are, you'll begin to lose interest in who the world said you should be. That's how you know God is not just around you. He's working in you. And the deeper He works, the more undeniable it becomes. Not because everything in your life looks polished, but because everything inside you is finally aligned. There is one more sign, and it's the one nobody asks for: the testing. If you've entered a season where nothing makes sense, where obedience doesn't feel rewarding, where you've been faithful, but doors still haven't opened, you are not cursed. You are being trusted, because God tests before He releases. He refines before He elevates, and He hides before He reveals. You are not being punished, you're being sanctified. And sanctification always feels like suffering to the flesh. You'll know God is working in you when He begins asking you to walk without explanation, to trust without evidence, to wait without understanding, to give without receiving. This is not cruelty, this is maturity. God doesn't feed children and warriors the same way. Children are fed milk. Warriors are trained through fire. And if the fire around you is growing, it's because the fight ahead of you is greater. You are not just being made ready for a blessing. You are being made ready for a battle. Because the higher the calling, the deeper the crushing. You'll know He's working in you when obedience starts to cost you. When the yes you gave Him years ago finally demands everything. When the prayers you prayed begin to demand your pride, your schedule, your comfort, your convenience. God doesn't want half your heart. He wants the parts you still try to protect. He wants the areas you still try to control. That relationship you refuse to surrender. That fear you keep justifying. That dream you've turned into an idol. When God begins putting His finger on those places, that's not spiritual attack. That's surgical love. He's removing the rot before it ruins the promise. And that pain you're feeling, that confusion you're wrestling with, that silence you're enduring, that's how gold feels when it's inside the furnace. You're not being destroyed. You're being refined. And here's the irony of growth. The closer you get to breakthrough, the more intense the pressure becomes. Just ask Joseph. Before the palace came the prison. Before the crown came betrayal. Before the dream came darkness. But God was with him. Not just when he rose, but when he was forgotten. When he was falsely accused. When he was hidden. Because hidden seasons are never wasted seasons. That's where God does His deepest work. And if lately it feels like no one sees your effort, like your obedience is being overlooked, like your prayers are echoing in silence, you are not invisible. You are being planted. Roots grow in silence. Strength grows in private. Faith grows in the dark. And when the time is right, when your character can carry the weight of your calling, He will reveal in you what He's been cultivating through you. That's how you know. Not only is God with you, He is preparing to move through you. Because once God starts working through you, everything changes. You stop needing credit because you know you were called to carry the cross, not the crowd. You stop chasing platforms because the secret place has become more powerful than the spotlight. You stop fighting for status because you've realized your anointing was never dependent on anyone else's approval, and you begin to understand this was never about comfort. It was about consecration. It was never about success in the world's eyes. It was about obedience in God's. The people who leave, let them. The dreams that die, let them. The version of you that couldn't survive the fire, let it be buried. Because what rises from these ashes will not be fragile. It will not be shallow. It will not be addicted to applause or broken by rejection. It will be holy. The fire doesn't just burn, it brands. And if you've been walking through it, if you've been feeling the pressure, if you've been shedding the old skin, if you've been saying yes, even when it costs everything, then hear this now. You are not losing. You are being launched. Not into comfort, but into calling. Not into popularity, but into power. Not into status, but into submission. You are being prepared to carry something eternal. Because when God works in you, He doesn't just make you better, He makes you new. And that's how you know it's Him. Not because it's easy, not because it looks glamorous, but because it produces fruit that no man can counterfeit. Peace that passes understanding. Love that overcomes offense. Joy that survives sorrow. Wisdom that humbles pride. And faith that refuses to die. If you see these signs, don't doubt. Don't fear. Don't pull back. Lean in. Because this isn't just growth, this is resurrection. This isn't just transition. This is transformation. This is God, not just around you, not just ahead of you, not just speaking to you. This is God working in you. Let Him finish what He started. Thank you for joining me today. Please like and subscribe and comment below. We would love to know if this helped you in any way. May the Spirit of God be with you.